Institute. And she's just such a delight, always a compassionate word to say. Reverend Uki was ordained at Harmony Grove Spiritualist Association in Escondido, I almost said Hawaii, and has been serving the Grove as a minister for over 25 years. Reverend Uki is also an intuitive, counselor, and a spiritual psychic. Through her gift of clairvoyance, she empowers her clients to integrate their spiritual purpose and live a fuller, more meaningful life, having overcome life-threatening illnesses more than once. Her mission is to teach, heal, and inspire others to heal themselves by connecting to the power of spirit within. Past life regression and soul retrieval are other specialties with which she serves her clients, and with her beloved husband Gary, resides in San Diego's North County with her, and together they offer popular monthly meditation and angel message events. In her own words, "My life is my ministry, and nothing that ever happened to me was by mistake. I can see the hand of God in the many twists and turns that my life has taken, and I am so blessed to walk the path of service and passion as to do the work she loves." Please help me welcome Reverend Uki MacIsaac.
Well, good morning again.
Good morning.
We are already 1 month into the new year of 2024, and maybe you, like so many others, have set certain goals for this year. Yeah, who set some goals here? All right. Now, we all know that sometimes these New Year's resolutions have a way of fading away, and you know, we have to be really committed to them to make them come through. But you know why? Another reason why they fade away? Because we haven't made room for the new yet. We're clinging to the old. So today I would like to discuss a bit, how can we let go of the old so we can invite in the new? And there are specific actions. You know, there are actions, attitudes, beliefs that can support us on that journey. So first we're going to talk about what happens when we are either wanting to let go or we are forced to let go. It's not always a choice, is it? At least not a conscious choice. So the most dramatic one is probably when we lose a loved one. And what we have to do is to grieve. There are no shortcuts through grief, are there? Through the work of a very famous German psychologist, Elisabeth Kubler-Ross, we know about the different stages of grieving, and I won't go into detail, but you know, there are different aspects, emotions we go through, anywhere from denial to bargaining, and at the end of that long road of emotions, we come to acceptance. So, but we can also grieve other things, for example, loss of a certain position in society, right? I recently talked to a man who was a CEO of a big company, and when he retired, he just didn't know what to do with himself. He was completely lost because he had so over-identified himself with that position. Sometimes we have to let go of things. Now that's a little bit easier to some, not to me. I hold on. And you know, there is a good idea of how to evaluate what things to let go of and what to keep. If you ask yourself, does it give me great joy? Keep it. Am I using it? Keep it. If it's just sitting there and matching neither one of those characteristics, then let it go. And of course, we're not talking about trashing things, right? We would know about recycling, giving back. And remember, once person's, what is that word? Once person's trash is another person's treasure, right? Yeah, we've all heard that. So, there's an interesting thing also about letting go of emotions. You know, sometimes we harbor a sense of wrongdoing that doesn't let us go, right? And who hasn't made some mistakes in their lives? Some big, some small ones, but some can haunt us. And I want to read you a quick story of 2 boxes. I have in my hands 2 boxes which God gave me to hold. He said, put all your sorrows in the black and all your joys in the gold. I heeded his words, and in the 2 boxes both my joys and sorrows I store. But though the gold became heavier each day, the black was light as before. With curiosity, I opened the black. I wanted to find out why, and I saw in the base of the box a hole which my sorrows had fallen out by. I showed the hole to God and mused aloud, I wonder where my sorrows could be. She smiled a gentle smile at me. My child, they're all here with me. I asked, God, why give me the boxes? Why the gold and the black with a hole? My child, the gold is for you to count your blessings. The black is for you to let go. You know, along those lines, have you ever heard the expression of a God box? It really sounds simple, but it amazingly works. So when we have a big sorrow or trouble or problem we feel like we can't solve, write it on a piece of paper, fold it up, and put it in a pretty little box. It's a symbolic act of giving it to God, yes? And even though, you know, we're very ritualistic beings, so symbolic acts affect the subconscious, all right? So try that out. A little God box can be very helpful. Now, another attitude that is very helpful once we're done with the grieving process is to detach. You know, those of you who have knowledge of Buddhist theories and teachings know that the Buddhists say, well, attachment is the root cause of all our troubles. Isn't that true? And of course, not being detached doesn't mean to be cold and uncaring. It just breaks the over-identification with what we surround ourselves with. And there's also the notion of non-resistance. When we see, do you think we all are controlaholics? I think I am. Okay, I have to admit it. And trying to control is such a hopeless venture, isn't it? Because we are under the illusion that we can control what happens in the world. And then we have to learn that all we can ever control, if we're lucky, is ourselves, right? That's hard enough work. So letting go of control, that's the notion of non-resistance, allowing for the flow of life to move through you. And that doesn't mean you're a doormat, you know, you will have your goals, your visions, your maybe expectations or priorities, but you are not clinging to it, because that leads to trouble. And that leads me to the next point, surrender. Now, again, surrender doesn't mean giving up. Absolutely not. But it is making room for the divine in our heart and in our lives. And there are beautiful prayers that offer up that notion of surrender, and that restores or strengthens our faith in the divine too, yes? So, without trust and faith in Great Spirit, or in some form, doesn't matter what we call the divine. We can call it Great Spirit, God, Source, Father, Mother, God. It doesn't matter. It is just the notion of having higher power is what some people call it, right? And that surrender to the wisdom of the higher power. There is beautiful prayers about God's will be done, not mine. That's an act of surrender, yes? And sometimes we can't see the bigger picture because we're clinging to our notion of how things should evolve and happen. And have you had that experience where, let's say something bad happened, an illness or a divorce or a loss of a job, and in a moment you think, oh, this is the worst thing that could happen to me. And a year later, everything has shifted. And you go, wow, I'm so glad that happened. Now I see the blessing in what happened, right? In the moment, we often can't see it. In hindsight, it's much easier. Another attitude that is so important for letting go is forgiveness. And you know, we sometimes think we have to forgive someone because we're supposed to, we should. But when we realize that in forgiving, we set ourselves free, that's the most important thing. Otherwise, we cling to the past. We cling to past injuries or wrongs. And forgiving is releasing ourselves so we can access inner peace again. And you know, forgiveness of self is also super important. I don't know about you, but I still carry some memories of things I did when I was very young. I was a school teacher in Germany, and I wasn't very experienced, and I made mistakes. And I always think, wow, what if these kids were really affected by these not planned mistakes? So I have to forgive myself. I did the best I could with what I had at the time. Can you tell yourself that too? It works, by the way, too, with others. Parents, for example. You know, no parent is ever perfect. What family doesn't have some degree of dysfunction? Show me one. And so we have to remember they did the best they could with what they had. And maybe you've heard there's a beautiful Hawaiian practice that's called Ho'oponopono. Who has heard that? Oh, wow, you are so good, you guys. So I don't want to go into detail, but it's 4 very simple phrases that you go, well, how could that make a big difference? I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. Or thank you, I love you. You know, 4 simple phrases, but when they're really spoken from the heart, it makes a big difference. And there is a whole body of knowledge and experience around that. So, we looked at how to let go, and I gave you those 4 notions of grieve, detach, surrender, forgive. Now, let's look what empowers us to bring in the new, shall we? All right. So, in one more quick word, you know, out with the old, in with the new doesn't mean we discard randomly. There are some things, some people that may hurt us. You know, what marriage doesn't have at some point or other a crisis, right? So if we're too quick to just let go, then it leads to divorce, right? When we can be present, allow, forgive, have dialogue, and heal. So it always use discernment, right? And sometimes old things, you know, I'm from Germany, so, and my mother just passed away a year ago, And when I go back, I'm surrounded by all these things I grew up with. And I go, I can't give this away. It's my mom's favorite so-and-so. And, then I realize it's the emotional attachment I have to that. So, one quick silly little story. So when I first moved here from Germany, it was 40 years ago. Oh my God, I'm almost a native by now. So I was a high school teacher and for German and French, and I was very attached to my books. My books were my identity. I had about 2,000 of them at the time. And I thought, well, here I'm moving to a different country, a different continent. I have to leave everything behind, my family, my culture, my language. But my books, they have to come with me. So over a period of time, I packed box after box after box. And there was a cheap rate for printed matter, so when I had them all shipped out and I came here, it took about a couple of months, and I got the notification my books had arrived, probably by sea. Well, when I got the boxes, they were shredded. The books had pages ripped out, the covers were missing, anthologies were missing important volumes, and I was livid. I was furious. I don't know how many letters I tried to write to the postmaster about my disgust. And the joke is, again, in the moment, it's not a happy thing. But in the long run, I realized that these books represented an aspect of my past. And here I was, starting a new life in a new country. And of course, books are valuable, but these books were not representing me anymore in my new world. So that was an interesting lesson about letting go. So now let's talk about bringing in the new. First of all, as I started earlier, there's nothing wrong with setting goals and intentions. And we need to be committed to them. So, do you know a couple of tools that are really helpful in bringing your New Year's resolution alive and making them stick? One is the good old vision board. Who's ever done a vision board? Yay, good for you. So you can read up on what it is. It can become a very powerful tool for co-creation. Do you believe that you are all co-creators? Yay! Let me hear it again. Yay! All right, with great spirit. So, another good tool, it's old-fashioned, but it really works, are affirmations. We can reprogram the subconscious mind, but it takes a lot of repetition and feeling. Like, look at me. If I say, I'm a powerful woman, doesn't do much, does it? But if I say, I am a powerful woman, woo, my brain gets it, all right? So anyway, those are tools that are helpful with manifesting what you wish. Along the lines, it's very important to embrace failure. Ooh, not that. And you probably all have heard the story of the inventor of the light bulb, Edison, right? And how many times, maybe 100 times, he tried and failed. He didn't give up. And at some point, he had a breakthrough. All right, that's a famous story. So when we also not only accept failure, but move on, we also need to celebrate our achievements, our victories, right? So if you've done something that you're really proud of yourself, you finished something, you completed, give yourself time to celebrate. A little getaway, a little something that makes you feel good. That, again, anchors in the brain the worthiness. Embrace change. Do change. I had a wise teacher who would say, change is the only constant in the universe. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm a Scorpio, and Scorpios are not known to let go easily. Someone else is a Scorpio? Ah, hey, hello, Scorpio. Not easy being a Scorpio, but worth it, really worth it. So when we allow ourselves to be flexible and build resilience, then it is so much easier to embrace change. And we need to allow for a shift in perspective, right? When we judge harshly, that is not conducive to flexibility. So acceptance. You know, it's no accident that in 12-step, who in here is familiar with 12-step groups? All right, just knowing about it.
Yeah.
And there is that famous prayer, the Serenity Prayer. Who can say it? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Says it all, doesn't it? All right, so that leads me, of course, to the importance of meditation, mindfulness, and prayer. Along the lines of the God box, I really, when the proverbial S-C-H-I-T, S-C-H-I-T hits the proverbial fan, in German it's S-C-H, so, sorry. Then, you know, it's so important to come back to the foundation. Okay, I can do this, God help me do this. There was a time when I was in the hospital for a long, long time, and it was after I had my near-death experience, and my lungs had filled up with water, so I could hardly breathe. And they were very concerned whether to put me back on the breathing mechanism or not, you know, which is not fun, trust me. And so I was conscious at that time, and so I internally, with this little bird breath that was left, I internally said, "Thy will," on the breath in, not mine. That was all the breath I had. Thy will, not mine. Thy will, not mine. I swear it got me through this. And they didn't have to put me back on respirator. So, you know, in the song that we sang earlier, St. Francis' name was on top, like the one on all the creatures in God's world, right? Mm-hmm. And the prayer of St. Francis is a beautiful prayer. You all know it, right? Mm-hmm. Let me be an instrument of thy peace. And I'm not going to recite the whole thing, but you know, it's an ideal. It's not something we can probably do on a daily basis, but it's something to strive for. It's better to understand than to be understood, to love than be loved. My little ego says, no, I want to be understood, I want to be loved, you know, but again, it's an ideal. And practice positive habits. And part of that, you know what, is self-care. I've done this work now for a long, long time. And more I realize that without proper self-care, we have nothing to give. Isn't that true? We need to refill the well so we can be useful and generous to others. Nurture your relationships, the ones that really matter. And there are people that sometimes leave our lives, not through death or anything, but you know, we drift apart. And I'm one of these super loyal Germans, holding on, all right? And yet I've had to say, okay, I can still appreciate this person, but we have drifted so far apart that I guess there's not a valid, viable friendship anymore. So, important, observe your inner dialogue. You know, some of us we're so hard on ourselves. Who can say, yeah, you too, huh? And when we observe what the little ego mind, I call it the monkey mind, all the time, right? So we don't have to believe everything the monkey mind tells us. It's the ego, it wants to protect us, but it sometimes doesn't quite know how to do that. All right, so when you find yourself, that's why you want to meditate, so you can become the observer of your inner dialogue. And you don't buy into everything that the monkey mind tells you. All right? So when you find yourself being super critical, replace it, oh, I love you so much. You know? Hug yourself. It's really interesting. And you know, even smiling, when you don't feel like smiling, it still sends a message to the brain. I'm in a yoga class for cancer survivors, and sometimes the teacher says, and now for the advanced pose, smile. All right. So, and of course, very important, gratitude and giving back. You know, I've heard it say the best prayer there is simply, thank you, God. And if you say that in the morning, before you get out of bed, say it 10 times. Thank you for my cup of coffee, that's right over there. Thank you for the cat that just hopped on my bed. You know, thank you for a roof over my head. For my wonderful husband who brought me the cup of coffee in the morning. You know, I like to say thank you, God. I don't count, but before I put my feet out of bed, I've already said at least 10 times thank you. And you know what? That opens the heart, and that brings us more positive experiences. Isn't that true? If I go into a store and I'm really grouchy, guess what happens? You know, I encounter grouchiness. Or maybe the cash register person isn't quite up to par, or whatnot. Or I'm in the wrong line. You know, I'm really good about being in the wrong line. So anyway, when we go into the store with a smile and ask, well, how are you today? Oh, you know, a little small talk never hurts. It just makes such a difference. And serve, serve, serve. When we are blessed with goodness, part of that is giving back. And we all have ways and means to give back. It doesn't need to be money. It can be love. It can be a service. It can be helping a neighbor, a person in need. Maybe somebody whose home just got flooded. You could maybe help them clean up. There's always something we can do to be of service. And that creates balance in our lives again, doesn't it? I want to tell you one more quick story here, and it's from the Buddhist tradition, and you probably have heard it. There's actually quite a few variations to that. So, in a small village, there was an old Zen master known for his wisdom. One day, a curious young traveler approached him and asked, "Master, what is the secret to living a peaceful and content life?" The wise master invited the traveler to sit with him by a flowing river. He handed the traveler a cup and began to pour tea. The cup soon overflowed, and the master continued pouring. The traveler, puzzled, said, "Master, the cup is full. It can hold no more." The master stopped pouring and looked at the young traveler. "Indeed, like this cup, your mind is full of preoccupations, judgments, and attachments. How can you receive the teachings of life if your mind is already overflowing with what you think you know?" Understanding dawned on the traveler, and he asked, "What should I do, master?" The Zen master replied, "Empty your cup. Let go of your attachments, desires, and judgments. Only then can you truly taste the essence of life. Be present in each moment without the burden of the past or the worry of the future. That's a big lesson, right? And a couple more quotes before I wrap it up. I like this one. Letting go means to come to the realization that some people are part of your history, but not of your destiny. Isn't that true? No, I believe that we establish soul contracts with others. And I actually believe that we make these contracts before we come into body. I call them soul contracts. And we travel in sort of a cluster as souls. And this is my belief, okay? You may have a different one. But I think that on spirit side, we said, okay, what game are we gonna play this round? You wanna be my mom? Oh, or should I be your wife? So that's how I see souls deciding on spirit side. And then that soul contract has a purpose. And sometimes that purpose isn't for a whole lifetime. When that purpose is filled, when that soul contract is complete, then you may have to let go of the other. I had to learn that after my first divorce. And then what happened, a wonderful husband came into my life after I had done my grieving and releasing work. Another quote here. You cannot start the next chapter of your life if you keep rereading the last one. That's a good one. Lao Tzu said, when I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. See, we got to let go of our notion of who we are to allow for the greater good to work with us and through us. To let go is to release the images and emotions, the grudges and fears, the clingings and disappointments of the past that bind our spirit. Cry, forgive, learn, move on. Let your tears water the seeds of your future happiness. I love that. Tears watering the seeds of future happiness. So it's all about the circle of life, isn't it? Letting go, inviting in the new. It's a continuous process. It's not a one-time thing. We have to really do it continuously. So, I hope I have given you some useful ideas and notions about how to release the old and welcome the new. And one more thing, the year 2024 is an 8 year in numerology. And when you put the 8 on the side, it's the infinity sign, right? So it indicates balance. It's a good thing to be in an 8 year. And it encourages also to look at balance in our lives between giving and receiving, between material and spiritual work, and so on. And finally, on February 10th, we start the year of the dragon. All right, Chinese astrology, it's the green wood dragon. So I looked a little bit into that, and the color green, of course, is healing, it's nature. Then wood is a very grounding energy. Now the dragon itself is a fiery creature, right? Roar! It's the only mythological creature. Oh, she's a dragon? All right. So dragons can be fiery, yes? But a dragon year overall is perceived as very auspicious. And of course, the heat of the dragon, we can see that in some currently unnamed politicians. Zip. So it'll be an interesting year, let's say that. But it can be a year of fulfillment, of success, of material abundance, if we do it right and if we make room for the new. All right, so with that, I want to remind you, out with the old, in within you. Thank you.